Here are 5 things I learned from a conversation with Ben Andrews in episode 3. So the first thing I learned is all about perspective. Ben had and has so many reasons to be down and sad at life, but he chooses not to be. He chooses to focus on what he has in his life that he's grateful for. And I think that's such an amazing perspective to have, and it's quite powerful. And this doesn't mean that you shouldn't be sad or, you shouldn't feel down. It's just a matter of perspective and a way of viewing life. Sometimes we're faced with adversity or loss, and this actually serves as a reminder of the good things we have in our life, and it might help us to feel a little bit more grateful for the things that we still have. The second thing I learned from a conversation with Ben Andrews in episode 3 is that sometimes the right decisions are the most difficult to make. The fact that a decision is difficult isn't an indicator that it's the wrong decision. So in episode 3, me and Ben spoke about parents feeling afraid of sending their child to a gym in case they get bullied. And although they're well-intentioned and this may work in the short term, it is a short-term solution, it does have negative long-term consequences. So for example, if you won't let your child go to the gym because you fear they're going to get bullied, in the short term it does ensure your child's safety, and it probably alleviates your anxiety. You don't have to worry about them getting bullied because you've not let them go to the gym. However, in the long term, it prevents the child. Societal level, I believe, is partly willful blindness. A lack of awareness isn't an excuse. We can't talk about equity while avoiding adopting responsibility to make changes which achieve equity. So what's being done? Because these barriers can be removed, and that's exactly why Ben is doing what he's doing. A support network that you can utilize if you ever face that similar situation in the future, because parents are not always going to be around. So actually, the right thing to do is to try and equip your children with the skills, the resilience, the coping mechanisms to navigate and deal with these situations. So the third thing that I learned from episode 3 in conversation with Ben Andrews was how many barriers that certain groups face just trying to access something that I take for granted. Something like going to the gym, something we all take for granted. And Ben educated me quite a lot in episode 3. But this is the one thing that stood out to me. So, just to go to the gym, they have to consider the physical or environmental barriers on the way to the gym, such as street lighting, drop curbs. Do the crossings have tactile cones? They might have to pay a premium for taxis. They might have to consider whether the gym has an easy read program, audio instructions, are people re-racking the weights? I'm going to be tripping over things in the gym. And what stands out to me is that all these barriers can be removed. So why are they not being removed? And I think at an individual level, this is partly due to a lack of awareness around other people's experience. And I think at a societal level, I believe it's partly willful blindness. A lack of awareness isn't an excuse. We can't talk about equity while avoiding adopting responsibility to make changes which achieve equity. So what's being done? Because these barriers can be removed, and that's exactly why Ben is doing what he's doing. So the fourth thing I learned from a conversation with Ben Andrews in episode 3 was about embodying our values. So Ben spoke about prioritizing work over family. I think sometimes people prioritize seemingly important things whilst neglecting the things that are actually important, and it's not until we're met with something that reminds us of this before we can embody that wisdom and start to behave accordingly to prioritize what's really important. So for example, it might take you losing a family member to realize how important family is and for you to prioritize that family time. But actually, if you can focus on prioritizing family before it gets to a stage, before something like that happens, then you're winning. You have something to be grateful for. And a little bit more on embodying our values. So I have a friend that I run with, and we have some good conversations on our runs. And he's faced with a little bit of a dilemma around dating. And I know what his values are. He knows what his values are. But he feels unsure of what he wants to do. And the one thing I wanted to remind him is that our values are what we embody, not what we say they are. So if your values are family, if your values are health, you must behave accordingly, and they should lead your actions. So the fifth thing I learned from a conversation with Ben Andrews in episode 3 was that grades don't define you. And this is something I already knew, and I've knew for a long time, but the conversation with Ben really brought it home. So Ben spoke about not getting great English grades and not being great at writing, but now he writes bids and applications for funding, and he has a 5-book deal. So this is for anyone who thinks grades define them. This is for anyone who's had bad grades and thinks that defines the future. This is for anyone who's just received bad grades and thinks the world is over. I'm here to remind you that it's not. And you can do anything you put your mind to. You just have to believe in yourself and keep working towards it. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip, click here to get the full episode. And don't forget to subscribe.